Hey everybody, my name is Zach and welcome back to the channel. So, today we are on Tier Maker, and with the end of the Lost Origin format coming pretty much within the next 2 weeks, I just want to go through and rank all the decks that I have played personally and tell you what I think of them. Silver Tempest is going to bring us some new stuff to play with. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how great it all is. I think it'll be pretty good. But let's rank every deck that I've tested. We have a handful here. So we're just going to go in the order. So we're going to start with Arcanine. Arcanine is a super fun deck. With the Zoroark engine, you can do a lot of things. You can play tech attackers if you want. You can do a lot of different things, and this deck, super fun, has a really good Arceus matchup depending on the version you're playing against. So, put Arcanine in the Rogue category. Alright, next we have the Clefairy box deck. Basically, if you don't know what this does, here's the gist. Get a bunch of energies in play, do a bunch of damage with a little dude. Unfortunately, the deck is, just bad. So we're just going to put that in the locals tier. By the way, the locals tier is just for, the, decks that you'll probably have more fun with at locals. Alright, next we have Morpeko Control. So Morpeko Control features this Morpeko, which has the Torment attack that lets you start locking with your opponent. And you play Miltank, you play the Regieleki, and stuff like that. It just is a solid overall control deck that, depending on the metagame of the event, is pretty good. No, I want more Pekka. And that's why I'm putting it in Tier 3. It's super metagame dependent. But if you hit matchups that Miltank just stonewalls, you're going to win a lot of games. Alright, so Spiritomb's bad. So I'm just going to put it in locals. Basically, you just want a bunch of Spiritombs in your discard, and they do more damage for each. Yeah, the deck's bad. It takes 2 Darkness energy to attack, which is the biggest problem I've noticed. The acceleration for Dark energy is, good, but Dark Patch doesn't work when you want to swing with the active Spiritomb. And then, you start going, well, do I add energy switches and all that stuff? Yeah, so overall, not great, but not bad either. Up next, we have the Crobat VMAX, Wheezing deck. It's running around here and there. Overall, the deck is very strong. I hit them for 70, poison them, throw up a Wheezing, and with Wheezing, Radiant, Hisui, and Sneasler, you start accumulating a lot of damage. You can play different disruption cards. Some lists play Crushing Hammer, the Yell Horn, and stuff like that. Overall, it's a solid deck. Not in the upper echelons of our game, but a freaking good deck in the right metagame. Alright, Durant. Everyone knows what Durant does. Durant mills. Durant, this format, really strong. This is going to be a more controversial opinion. However, I think Durant's very good. A lot of the decks unintentionally are just decking themselves. And with the addition of Misfortune Sisters, this deck is very strong. Unfortunately, it is Durant, so, prizing can hurt you. But Durant, I'd say, is a Tier 2 deck. But you can definitely make the argument for, the top of Tier 3, so that's what I'm going to do for now. But Durant's good. Alright, next we have the Soul Tune deck. Soul Tune, it does what it needs to do. I like it better than the Crobat deck and the Morpeko deck, but it's still Tier 3. It doesn't, it loses to Empoleon super hard, which is quite popular this format. It just loses to itself a lot, unfortunately, and then, if you run into a bad string of hands, you're not doing anything. Alright, now we have the Shadow Rider VMAX deck without Arceus, featuring Mewtwo V-Star and Espeon VMAX. So the deck, super fun. Really enjoyable to play. It does a ton of damage, but with it being weak to Dark as well as being a VMAX, it has an awkward place in the format, as well as you tend to want your bench kind of sizable, so the Palkia matchup becomes very difficult. It has a surprisingly alright Lost Zone matchup just because of the Espeon and the little Shadow Rider's Astro Barrage attack. However, I can't put the pure version in anything higher than Rogue. Alright, next we have or the Reggie deck. Reggies are insanely good this format. In my opinion, it is the second best single prize deck in the format. And for me, it is a top 10 deck in the format as well. This deck is dangerous. It has good matchups across the board, and for that, I'm going to put it in tier 1. Alright, now we go back to more fun stuff. So we have Aerodactyl V-Star. I've been playing it more as a control deck than a let's turbo Lost Zone cards and get this boy powered up kind of thing. So I've been playing it with Snorlax, Silene, Lake Aquity, Memory Capsule, and stuff to try to use the Aerodactyl V attack. However, the deck is just inherently a bad version of Mewtwo control, so I'm going to put it in the locals category. But honestly, it's better than these two, so I'll put it at the top of that category. Overall, the deck is still a ton of fun to play, and I highly recommend it. Next, we have Dialga V-Star. So Dialga V-Star is a very fun deck as well, getting a lot of boost from the Lost Zone engine. Overall, the deck does what it does. It's Dialga, you turbo through, you try to get a Star Chronos off, and then just kind of take control of the game from there. The deck still has its issues of rough hand. Whoops. Rough hand. Really? Alright, there we go. We're going to put that in tier 2. Deck is very strong. If that deck opens up a good hand, the game's over. Magnezone V-Star is pretty bad. It's definitely better than Spiritomb, but not better than the Clefairy deck. So basically, Magnezone does 3 for 160 or 180. Usually you'll have a DT on there, so it goes down to 160. Lets you search your deck for any 2 items. Really cool in theory, but a lot of decks just play Marnie. Yeah. Deck just kind of loses to itself. Alright, next we have Samurott V-Star. Samurott V-Star lists have kind of just conjoined into the Weezing Samurott deck. That's why I didn't, do any of the little, edits like that. But the deck's fun. It can hit for pretty good numbers against the V-Star decks. I'll still put it in Rogue, but it is better than the Shadow Rider deck for sure. Alright, next we have Hisuian Zoroark V-Star. I have 2 Zoroark V-Star decks on this tier list. There are 2 versions that 2 different versions. There is this one, which I'm considering the version that tends to play basic energy, and like Empoleon. Recently I've seen Decidueye. I think that version is fine and all. I'm going to put it in the tier 1.5 category. It has just, fun matchup. It's fun to play, decent matchups, the whole shebang. Lucario V-Star was something I tested really early in the format. With the Mirage Gate stuff. It's not very good. Lilligant, same kind of deal, even though I just wanted to play Lilligant again because I didn't really get to test it as much in Astral format. And I'm like, yo, hey, we got more cards. Still better than these 2. Mew VMAX. What do I have to say? It's Mew. The deck is insanely good, consistent. Now we have, the DTE build and the Fusion build. I was going to keep them in different things, but honestly, the more I looked at it, I'm like, regardless of the version, it doesn't change where I put the deck, where I'm putting it in tier 1. This deck is insanely strong. Really, there are a lot of times that when I play this deck, I lose to the deck itself more than the deck I'm playing. The hardest matchup is definitely the Palkia matchup. Giratina, depending on how you play the list. Some lists are playing Big Parasol, which really helps. So yeah, it's Mew, guys. It's going to be there. It's consistent. Alright, so Gengar VMAX. It's probably the best of, the local decks. It's super fun to play. Unfortunately, it's Gengar VMAX, so it still bricks like hell. Inteleon VMAX. This deck I started testing because of how good Empoleon is. I'm like, well, Inteleon VMAX is pretty fun. Empoleon's pretty good. So, honestly, it feels like almost a bad version of Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. I still love this deck a lot, but I can't put it any higher than the Rogue category. Alright, next we have Darkrai V-Star. So, Darkrai V-Star, when this deck goes off, it goes off harder than most decks in the format. You're able to do 30 damage for each of your dark energy in play. You have one of the better V-Star powers in Star Abyss, which lets you grab 2 items from the discard pile. The deck is really good when it gets going. It just loses to itself. But I still think it's better than the rogue decks, but I can't put it higher than tier 3, and it's honestly the weakest of the tier 3 decks so far. Alright, now we have Giratina V-Star. This is there to represent the Lost Zone version. Deck's good. It's just good. It's tier 1. I don't really have to say much about it. Deck is insanely strong. You lose to yourself sometimes, but that's the Lost Zone decks. Alright, now we have Rapid Strike Urshifu for VMAX. Urshi is such a fun deck, and honestly, if Giratina didn't exist, it'd arguably be a tier 1 deck, I think. Well, not tier 1, but it'd be so much better than it is. Because the deck just still has pretty good matchups. Yoga Loop is still insane. And for... Where did you go? There you are. And for that, tier 2. It's definitely weaker than Dialga, but in the right metagame, with a lot of little single prize decks, this deck just goes super hard. Alright, next we have Blissey. Blissey recently just got second at Lille Regionals literally 2 days ago. And the deck is super strong. Unfortunately, now that it's very good, it's going to be known for. However, I still think it's good enough. I'm going to put it in tier 1.5. So, the difference between tier 1 and tier 1.5, these are the decks that I expect to do well every time. These are the decks that I expect to do well most of the time. Sometimes in the right player's hand, very rarely, but in the right player's hands, literally has to be a dedicated player, and then I will never expect these decks to do well. Alright, now we have Arc Aggron. Arc Aggron is a cool deck. Benefits from Aggron VMAX's big numbers, and then Aggron V just being an absolute beast. It has a very good Palkia Kira matchup. It's just pretty solid across the board. It's not the best Arceus variant, in my opinion, but it's a better one, and it's pretty much the headliner of tier 3. Actually, no, I'm going to put it in tier 2, because it feels better than the other decks that I know I have in tier 3. So yeah, we'll put that in tier 2. Arceus Duraludon, it's Arceus Duraludon, the deck hasn't changed. I'll put it, do I want it top of tier 3 or bottom of tier 2? Let's do this for now. We can always look at it at the end and reconsider. Arcgudra, deck 1, Salt Lake City, super popular. Arceus sets up super bulky Gudras, and this helps you in the red. This makes the Reggie matchup really fine. Gudra's really good in that matchup, really good in the Lost Box matchup. Pretty good in the Palkia matchup, depending on the board state, obviously, but overall the deck is just good. However, I think because, now that people know it exists, kind of like Blissey, I'm going to put it in tier 1.5, but at the top of it. Arcanteleon, one of the most popular decks of the Astral Radiance format and Brilliant Stars format. The deck's fallen off. It's not nearly as good as it once was. And it doesn't do enough, it feels like. However, I will put it in tier 2 because Inteleon's insane. Arc Lucario, Locals, probably the best of the Locals decks. I just wanted to test it, honestly. I like Lucario V-Star as a card. It's a ton of fun, but I can't really put it any higher. Alright, now we go to my favorite deck of the Astral Radiance format, Arc Maui. I want this deck to be good. It's just not. It's a rogue deck at best, and honestly, by going by my testing, it's not better than any of these have been. It just, it feels like it doesn't do enough. In your head, you're like, well, this should be really good, because you can path Marnie, Mally, so many of the decks, and you play, the Jolteon Memory Capsule thing, but things just go south so quick. Alright, next we have Arc Flying Pikachu. You need to go here. And the deck hasn't changed much. It's still super strong, depending on the variants you play. Some lists play Aegislash V, and VMAX is the third attacker. Some lists play Giratina, is not a dedicated variant. You can play Aggron. You can play a myriad of different things, because Arc Pika, the core, is just there. So it gives you a line to do it. Alright, this one is more just because I do this every format. I test Rayquaza VMAX because I love the deck. It's better than these, and it's better than Lilligant. Wait, Lilligant got moved up. You should be down here. Yeah. It's better than all these, so it might get moved down to the locals thing, but like when the deck goes off, it's very strong. Next we have Arceus Shadow Rider. The deck had a pretty good showing at Peoria. It does a lot. Arceus, as we know, is insanely good. Shadow Rider's good. It plays the Espeon VMAX. I'm going to put it at the bottom of Tier 3. It's not because the deck is bad. In the right metagame, of course, you can do well with it. Just look at Alex Kreckler. Made Day 2. Had a very decent showing with the deck. Shows that it still has legs. However, it's, you know, it's what you would expect. Alright, now we have Arceus Giratina. Deck is really good. This is probably one of the better Tier 1.5 decks. Sorry about, like, the cropping on this. I don't know what happened there. But it's Arctina. It's what you expect, right? Alright, now we have the Inteleon Frostmoth deck. I started testing it in the beginning of the format. Just because in my head I'm like, oh, this will be good. It's not. I'll take it to locals, you'll have fun. Alright, the Inteleon Charizard deck that was probably sneakily the best deck of the Astral format. It's fine. Like, it's not bad. It's definitely up in the Tier 3 rankings pretty high. It's just like Lost Box just does it better and faster. Alright, now we have the Vikavolt Inteleon deck. Bottom of Tier 2. Vikavolt is just good. And I don't think you'd have a bad time playing it. It has solid matchups. The Inteleon engine gives it a lot of legs. Radiant Charizard gives it a finisher. Deck super strong. Weezing Inteleon. I was testing this really early in the format because I'm like, well, if all these Comfies are going to be everywhere, can't we just sit on a Weezing and do Inteleon stuff and set up Baby Moltres plays, kind of like the Inteleon Charizard deck, but with Charizard? The deck is, like, very painfully average. It doesn't even auto-win the Lost Box matchups, so take it for what you will. Alright, now we have the Lost Box Charizard deck. Tier 1. Deck's good. Tord 1 Peoria with it. It's just insane. It does so much. Sableye is such a bonkers card. Yeah, so now we have this other Lost Box variant, and I'm considering this like the Cramorant Articuno version. Or we can represent this as the Mirage Gate version. So say if we're doing the Cramorant version, it's a rogue deck. However, if it's the Mirage Gate version, it's definitely up there. Alright, now we have a bunch of very interesting decks that I tried. So we tried the Lost Zone Duraludon thing. It's not bad. It's better than most of these. It's just like playing Lost Box, and then you want a Mirage Gate onto a Duraludon and just protect the castle, pretty much. Arcudra, kind of the same deal. It just does what the Duraludon deck does, but better. I can't put it higher than Tier 2, because I'm not very high on the deck. The Leafeon deck that Israel Sosa made a thing. Very fun. Pretty decent if you're playing against a bunch of Kyurem decks, but against, like, Mew, some other things, just really loses. So I'm going to put it in Tier 3. But towards, like, the middle ground, top point. No, I don't feel it's not better than these, but it's definitely better than these. This was a personal one. This deck's bad. It was just Lost Box Rayquaza with, like, Flaffy, so the goal is to, like, just do the Lost Box shenanigans. Mirage Gate a bunch of times onto a Ray and just start blowing stuff up and Flaffy the energy back. Like I said, I like Rayquaza VMAX, so I just wanted to try it. Alright, so we have the Mewtwo V Union deck that focuses on the Miltanks. It is pretty good. Not as good as it was, however, fortunately, the man, the myth, the legend, Sandor Wolchik, improvised. So now we have the Mewtwo V Union control deck with the Morpeko. This deck is incredible. It has answers to pretty much anything. I won my Team Challenge qualifier with this deck. Very good. Better than the original version. Even though, like, not a lot has changed, really. Not a lot has changed. It is a tier 2 deck. I think it falls into this middle ground point right now. However, at some point I feel like it'll be up there. However, well, actually, it's probably better than these two decks as well. Alright, now we have Palkia Ice Rider. It's a rogue deck. Yeah, better than that. Yeah, it's a rogue deck. It's exactly what you expect out of it. It's not as good anymore because there's just an inherently better version. Alright, now we have Palkia and Teleon. And this, in my opinion, is the best deck in the format. Also, you need to go here. You need to fall to the end, and then you need to go here. Sorry about that. Deck is insanely strong. It does exactly what you want it to do. As a wise man once said, even though now there's big accusations against him for cheating, Irida lets you do anything. Alright, Palkia Kyurem. Deck is super strong, right? It's the best of the tier 1.5 decks. I just feel like the deck's inherent inconsistencies at times just really hampered a little bit compared to the Inteleon version. Next we have Turbo Palkia. The deck's fun. It's still tier 2. It's just the skeleton that did well at the one Australian regionals. Then we have the Turbo Zoroark deck, which I still have it at tier 1.5, but I think it's better than like the pure one that will play like basic energies. And yeah, so that's the tier list. I think everything is fine. All these decks are fun to play except Spiritomb. I'm gonna be real with you. Literally test any of them except Spiritomb. Unless you're playing an expanded, then it works fine. But yeah. Thank you all so very much for watching. See you guys soon. Peace.